Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's DataON Virtual Academy. For today's webinar, we'll be talking about what you need to know about integrated systems for the new Azure Stack HCI. Today we have three speakers. Cosmos Darwin, he's a senior program lead for Azure Stack HCI at Microsoft, and he'll take us through the integrated systems for Azure Stack HCI and what that means for you. Nathan Callison is a systems administrator and data manager at Pathway Services, and he'll share his experiences with deploying Azure Stack HCI. And Howard Lowe is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at DataON, and he'll talk about the DataON portfolio of integrated systems for Azure Stack HCI and what makes them unique. So here's a few housekeeping items. The audience microphones should be muted during the webinar, but the chat window will be there for you to ask your questions. Just look for the question mark icon on the right side of your screen. And if you'd like to reach out and talk to any of our speakers, we have their Twitter handles listed. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, so you can watch the replay either here on the BrightTech channel or also on DataON's YouTube channel. And from here, I'll turn it over to Howard Lowe to get us started. Howard?
Thank you, Jeff. Very happy to be here today. Our first webinar to our customers and our audience in the year 2021. It's been a very interesting year for us last year. I'm glad we're here now. So to start off with, Happy New Year, everybody, and wish you a good, happy Chinese New Year starting today. And we want to make sure that we start 2021 at a bang. Today, I'm very excited to have both Cosmos and Nathan in our Bright Talk today, and really talking about the product that Microsoft has introduced in GA last year in December, and also really share some experience of our customer, Nathan at Pathway, and what the choices they made on Microsoft. To kick off, I want to really set up the journey that DataON has taken on the hybrid cloud, where we believe this is the direction of many of our customers, and we continue to invest in this market and a solution to help our customer refresh and deploy their solutions. Just some background. DataON, we are a technology company, and we've been around for over 30 years. We were founded in 1987. We're based in Anaheim, California, and we continue to invest in technology to help our customer and modernize their IT. We made a decision about 10 years ago to really focus on Microsoft and Microsoft solution and really be that exclusive partner for Microsoft. And that exclusivity really means that we want to really be good at Microsoft technology and really deliver a complete turnkey solution for our customer based on the solution stack that we deliver based on Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. But more importantly, we're also a technology provider and vendor for Intel, meaning that our infrastructure, our hardware, our components are really manufactured by Intel, and they're the key component and technology vendor for DataON to ensure that the hardware portion of our technology and our infrastructure are really the best of the breed class. As we continue to innovate and continue to deliver value for our customer, DataON also invests in software. Must and Must Pro, which you will hear later today, is a software stack that DataON developed within ourselves and really deliver that complete management and monitoring experience for our customer in the hybrid cloud computing environment. You also shared that DataON continue to innovate and help deliver services, professional services, monitoring services for our customer as a complete on-premises hybrid cloud solution. As I said earlier, DataON made the Microsoft choice in our journey, and really since the beginning of 2012 when Microsoft introduced software-defined storage, DataON was first to market and first partner with Microsoft to really deliver that integrated solution. As we continue the evolution from Windows Server 2012 to 2016 to 2019 and today, where Microsoft have a unique software stack OS called Azure Stack HCI, and really deliver that complete appliance experience for our customer. And more importantly, you learn today from Cosmos that Microsoft really have delivered multiple type of solutions to have that experience for integrated system. and really help our customer to ensure that their entire infrastructure is sound and reliable. In this journey, DataON has delivered over 150 petabytes of storage based on the HCI infrastructure, but more importantly, we have over 800 plus customers today using the Microsoft solution in their architecture. As we continue on this journey, you will hear that it is a hybrid cloud journey where many of our customers continue to invest and investigate what is the right solution for them. And we believe with Microsoft and Azure, they really deliver that end-to-end experience for our customer. Whether or not you have an infrastructure running on premises because of data governance reasons, because you have application workload that need to be on premise, you have a solution from Microsoft and DataON that deliver that type of performance workload resiliency for on-premises infrastructure. However, you want to leverage the cloud and cloud services such as backup, Azure Side Recovery, and other services for the cloud and hybrid cloud, you have a great partner like Microsoft that could deliver that cloud services for you. But more importantly, as Microsoft continue to innovate, the concept of Azure Arc for hybrid cloud services allow you to have a selection of multi-cloud environment. So you can see as the evolution of hybrid cloud continue, the choices really becomes the customer and what you want to really deliver for your environment that meets your requirements. DataON is not just a simple infrastructure provider. We really deliver that end-to-end solution for enterprise, including services and deployment. We want to make sure that in our experience in helping our customer, we could deliver that complete turnkey hybrid cloud computing experience. That includes design and architecting a hyper-converged infrastructure. That includes looking at business continuity with backup and recovery. Also includes the fact that we want to have the software to help you monitor your solution across the board and go to a cloud environment as a CSP with Microsoft. So you can see that DataON really deliver that complete end-to-end experience with our customer. As we continue this journey for the last 10 years, you can see that DataON have really helped many, many customers across multiple industries, working on different applications to ensure that they can migrate to this new software-defined solution and hybrid cloud solution from Microsoft. There's over 30,000 clusters deployed on Azure Stack HCI for Microsoft. But more importantly, DataON have many, many enterprise customers similar to DataON that made the Microsoft choice. You could be nonprofit, you could be K-12, state, local government, professional services, banking, healthcare. You can see the deployment, the adoption of Microsoft technology really cut across spectrum of customer industry. And all of these customers are really believing in the fact that Microsoft solution and Azure Stack HCI is the right choice for them and continue to work with partners like DataON to really optimize to deliver their infrastructure. With that background, I'd like to turn over the discussion to Cosmos Darwin to talk more about integrated systems. Go ahead, Cosmos.
Thank you so much, Howard, and hello, everybody. I imagine some of you have heard from me before, but for many, it's probably the first time, so I'll just introduce myself. My name is Cosmos Darwin. I'm the Senior PM lead for Azure Stack HCI at Microsoft. That's a part of the Azure Edge and Platform team. And today, I'm just going to spend the next maybe 15 minutes very briefly giving an overview of Azure Stack HCI if you aren't familiar with it, and then really focusing on something that we're very excited about, which is integrated systems, and in particular, that's very relevant to our partnership with DataON. And so I want to make sure I talk about why integrated systems are so important. So on the Azure Edge and Platform team, we're really committed to helping customers innovate anywhere with Azure. And that's a bit of a marketing buzz phrase, but what it really means is making it possible to take advantage of as much of the technology that we develop for Microsoft Azure, even if you're not doing it in a public cloud. And so as Howard described, many customers are moving some of their workloads to the public cloud, but there are certain applications where there's a good and durable reason that it may need to remain outside of the public cloud. But even so, you should be able to take advantage of as much of the technology that is being developed in Azure as possible. And that's really the spirit of this mission that we have, to help customers innovate anywhere with Azure, whether that's at the edge, in your on-premises data center, or in our data centers in the Azure public cloud. A key part of that is our Azure Stack HCI product. Azure Stack HCI is first and foremost a hyper-converged infrastructure software stack. It comprises a number of technologies that you may be familiar with, such as our hypervisor, our software-defined storage stack, which is Storage Bases Direct, and our software-defined networking stack. Those technologies, if you're familiar with them, they've shipped in various forms in Windows Server over the years. Those are the same technologies that comprise the HCI stack in Azure Stack HCI. And by the way, those are technologies that we take advantage of at massive scale in Azure as well. Really is the same hypervisor that we use in Azure, for example. Those technologies are delivered as an Azure hybrid service. I'll describe what that means in a moment on the next slide. And they're packaged up in a way that is familiar for you if you're someone who has background with server administration or with virtualization, and especially if you have a background with Microsoft Hyper-V, you'll find Azure Stack HCI very familiar and very easy to get started with. So what's this whole delivered as an Azure hybrid service thing? What does that actually mean? Well, Azure Stack HCI is different from what you might know in previous, for example, with Windows Server, in a few important ways. First of all, there's no software license that you actually need to buy or track for Azure Stack HCI. So you don't need to figure out how many licenses you need or how to go purchase those licenses. When you deploy an Azure Stack HCI, it's automatically billed to your Azure subscription. So you register it in the context of your subscription, and it shows up as just another line item on your Azure bill. Now, 95% of the Fortune 500 are already using Azure. We know most folks are already using Azure for something. So in all likelihood, you already have an Azure account, you already have an Azure subscription, and you can now pay for Azure Stack HCI through that. There's no separate software license that you need to buy or track. There's also no standalone legal agreement or legal terms. It's covered as an extension of Azure's legal terms. And so again, if you're already an Azure customer, it's very, very easy to get started with Azure Stack HCI. And there's no separate support contract that you need. It is covered under Azure support. And in fact, we've created a new organization this year that is specially trained just to help customers with any questions or issues that they have with Azure Stack HCI. And that's all part of Azure support. So if you have, again, if you're an Azure customer, super easy to get started with HCI. And unlike traditional software, there's no major versions here that you need to worry about, like which one should I buy and is it worth buying the next one to upgrade? All of that goes away. Azure Stack HCI, because it's a subscription service, is continuously getting feature updates and it's always up to date. So that's just a sort of a quick look at Azure Stack HCI, which, by the way, is now generally available. It went GA. You can be forgiven if you missed it because it was kind of near the holidays, but it went GA in December, just about 2 months ago from today. Now, as part of the announcement of the general availability of Azure Stack HCI, we also talked about something new that we hadn't talked about before, and that's integrated systems for Azure Stack HCI. Now, you may be familiar that we've had various hardware validation programs over the years, and this is actually a new term, right? We haven't talked about integrated systems before. And so the main thing I want to cover in this webinar today is what are integrated systems and why do they matter? What's actually different and better about choosing an integrated system, and why should you choose an integrated system as the way to deploy Azure Stack HCI? Now, you may have come across this term already, not just in our announcement of general availability, but also if you've looked at our hardware catalog recently. So if you go to azure.com/HCI and you take a look at the hardware solutions that are available for Azure Stack HCI, what you'll notice is at the top of the very first page, the ones that we recommend first and before all others are these ones that have that little integrated system badge, if you will, attached to them. And so you'll notice, for example, that DataON has solutions that show up right there as soon as you load the page, like you can see on the screen here. And so, okay, there's these integrated systems. Clearly, Microsoft is sort of encouraging using these integrated systems, but why? What's actually different and better about it? So that's the main topic I want to cover, is just like, what are the key reasons? And in fact, I think there's 3. So I'm going to cover 3 reasons that I think you should choose an Azure Stack integrated system for your next Azure Stack HCI deployment. The first one is that it is, frankly, the fastest and easiest way to get started with Azure Stack HCI. Every integrated system is orderable as a pre-configured multi-node solution. So you don't have to get into this game of picking a server platform and then picking all of the components separately and worrying about whether the network card is the right network card or should you have gotten a different one. You don't have to do any of that. And you don't have to check out with this giant bill of materials where every single thing is a separate line item from the partner. You can go to, for example, DataON and say, hey, I need a 4-node Azure Stack HCI cluster. And they'll be able to transact you that as one thing. Here is a 4-node Azure Stack HCI cluster. And when you receive it, it will already have Azure Stack HCI pre-installed on it, meaning you literally plug in the power, plug in the Ethernet, and then boot it up. And now you're running Azure Stack HCI. Within a couple seconds, you'll see the Azure logo appear on the screen, and you're ready to go. And that, I think, is a huge benefit in terms of time to value. You don't have to spend time tinkering with either your configuration that you order, nor do you have to spend time tinkering with actually getting the software installed in the first place. You can just get up and running smoothly. So that, I think, is the first big reason that integrated systems are the way to go. The second reason is that integrated systems are jointly supported by Microsoft and the solution builder, like DataON. And that's not just a marketing phrase. There's actually a lot that happens behind the scenes to make that true. We have actually software from Microsoft that integrates directly with the support system at DataON so that we can do seamless bidirectional support case exchange between Microsoft and DataON. What that means is if you contact DataON because there's some sort of an issue or you have a question, and actually it's an issue or question that should be addressed by Microsoft, DataON can transfer you to that team within Azure Support directly. You don't have to call a different number or go wait in some sort of a queue. And the reverse is also true. And so if you call Microsoft and actually we need to bring DataON in to understand the issue or the question that you have, we can do that without having to go through the front door of their support system either. We also are continuously working with partners who develop integrated systems to jointly validate these. And so there's a physical instance of these integrated systems, not only at DataON's location, but we have one as well. And we are continuously making sure that our software is optimized to run on these integrated systems. And we have a regular review where we work closely with DataON to ensure that the components they're selecting and all of the choices that they're making are the right and optimal choices for the integrated system. So it's really jointly supported by both the solution builder and by Microsoft. And then the third reason is something that you'll experience day to day as you use the product. And it's actually, I think, maybe the most significant out of all of them. And that is the management integration and the snap-in extensions for integrated full stack updates. So in Windows Admin Center, which is the primary console that you'll use to manage an Azure Stack HCI deployment, you'll see that there's a new kind of extension that's possible now. There's not just tools that show up on the left-hand side, but there's actually snap-ins that integrate directly into the workflows that you use day-to-day to manage Azure Stack HCI. And in order to be an integrated system, partners have to develop these snap-in extensions to deliver a seamless management experience. And so with every integrated system, like the ones from DataON, you know that when you go to the updates tool, you'll be able to get not just software updates, but also firmware and driver updates right there in the same experience. And when you deploy at the beginning, same thing. You'll be able to get not just the software configured, but also get all the right firmware and all the right drivers configured as part of setting up your cluster. So these management extensions are really super convenient. And I have a small screenshot here of some of the capabilities that are part of the DataON management extension. There's a lot more, and I think Howard will talk about that a little bit later. But this is really convenient in terms of just being able to use the same tool that you use for the software to also manage the whole stack of the solution. Now, there's actually a fourth reason. So I said I was going to talk about 3 reasons, and that's true. I think those are the 3 big reasons that if I was going to deploy Azure Stack HCI, I would choose an integrated system to do it. There is a 4th reason, though, and I think it's sort of a bonus I threw in here, which is there is some advanced technology that is not part of Azure Stack HCI today, but that is announced and that is coming to Azure Stack HCI. And as we develop these technologies, we're actually not testing them on every validated node. We are designing them to be guaranteed to work on integrated systems, and hopefully they work on other solutions as well. And a great example of that is actually KernelSoft Reboot. So KernelSoft Reboot, as a customer, if you purchase an integrated system, then you know that this capability is coming to you and it will work. It will probably work on other solutions as well, but that's not something that we're requiring every single other solution to test. It's only actually required to be supported on integrated systems. And I want to tell you a little bit about this specific one, KernelSoft Reboot, because it's super cool. It has some hardware dependencies, right? So there's real engineering work that we're doing to make this work on integrated systems. but it's just a really cool technology. And so I want to briefly give you kind of a sneak peek at this. Again, it's not something that's released yet, but it is something that we're comfortable talking about. So what is a kernel soft reboot? To understand this, it actually helps to first take a look at how a server normally reboots. And so just to talk about kind of a classic or cold server reboot, what happens when you restart a physical server is there's a sequence of steps that occur, which we call the shutdown path. And then there's a firmware transition where the platform actually transitions to off and then back on again. And then there's what we call the boot sequence or the boot path. And this includes a pre-boot set of steps, which are like the power on self-test and the platform initialization before the OS even gets loaded. Then the kernel and drivers get initialized and the services get initialized. So this is like what would normally happen if you just restart a computer or a server today. On a server, because of that pre-boot sequence, because the power on self-test is so extensive, this can actually take quite a long time. This can take many minutes, right? If you're a server administrator, you know that. You have experience with how long it takes to restart servers. And so we were sort of wrestling with this problem in Azure for our Azure host fleet, because we manage, like more than 1 million servers. And we were like, gosh, it's so annoying that it takes so long for these things to restart. Wouldn't it be great if we could kind of shortcut that somehow and actually develop a technology that allows a server to restart more quickly? And that is kernel soft reboot. So with kernel soft reboot, there's an additional step that takes place first. We prepare to perform a KSR. And then when we initiate the shutdown, we shut down the drivers and the kernel and the whole software stack, but we actually don't do a firmware transition. We don't actually shut down the physical hardware. Instead, there's a new driver that shortcuts directly to initializing the kernel, initializing the drivers, and bringing them right back up again. And if all you wanted to do was make a software change or apply a software update, this is perfectly fine, right? You don't actually need the server to power off and power back on. You just need the software to fully and completely reset itself, which is what this achieves. And this is a lot faster. And so we use this in Azure. It actually has a huge impact. It saves us like millions of minutes. And soon you'll be able to do this on Azure Stack HCI integrated systems too, because again, the software stack that you get with Azure Stack HCI really is the software stack that we use in Azure for our host fleet. So I have a small demo here that I want to show you of KSR in motion, just because it's like such a cool technology. So we have a video here. Let me show you. So what you're seeing here is a comparison between a normal reboot and a kernel soft reboot. So normal reboot is on the left, KSR is on the right. And this is just with one of the integrated systems that we had in our lab that we were actively testing a little bit earlier this year. What you'll see is the kernel soft reboot, because it is performing, as I said, that sort of faster path, the OS is actually going to be fully back up and ready for you to resume hosting VMs in just 19 seconds. By comparison, to actually go through the entire pre-boot sequence and power on self-test actually takes almost 4 minutes before you get to the same state, right? It's 3 minutes and 59 seconds later before that reboot is completed and the software is back up and running. So you can see it's more than a 10 times difference, actually, this technology. That's why we're so excited about it, and that's why we use it in Azure all the time. And personally, I'm very excited about being able to bring that technology to you and to your servers and to your data center through Azure Stack HCI. And that's, I think, a great example of what we mean when we say, you can innovate anywhere with Azure. So I just have, I think, one final slide here, and then I'll hand it off to Nathan. And so, to recap sort of what we've talked about, right? Why should you choose an integrated system for Azure Stack HCI? Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, it's the fastest time to value. You can order a multi-node solution with the software pre-installed. Second of all, it's jointly supported by Microsoft and the partner. So you have seamless bidirectional case exchange between us and, for example, DataON. There are snap-in extensions that give you one-click full-stack updates, meaning firmware and drivers alongside the software. And as you saw, there's advanced technology that's under development that we guarantee will work on integrated systems, but we aren't prepared to make that guarantee outside of integrated systems, just because there are so many hardware dependencies. So those are some of the benefits that you get as a customer when you choose to deploy Azure Stack HCI with an integrated system. Now with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nathan to tell us a little bit about his experience with Azure Stack HCI. Nathan?
My name is Nathan Callison, and I work for a company called Pathway Services. And so as you can see in that picture, we have vehicles. And what we do is we go and we collect data for typically state DOTs. Like they'll pay us to go drive, 20,000 miles worth of road or however many miles worth of road that they want, and collect data. And we have lasers and accelerometers that kind of read the surface of the pavement, and we have cameras that take pictures kind of out the front. If you kind of think of like Google roads and stuff like that, except we're much more sophisticated, because we have the lasers and accelerometer, and we kind of read the pavement surface, and we were able to give that back to the state DOTs so that they can make assessments on which roads they need to fix, when and where, and the time frame that they do. Our company is a little over 25 years old. We're headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We do have satellite offices in Central America, and we have over 200 employees. And as the data types evolve and expand and we add more data types, like LiDAR is one that we've added over the past couple of years. The challenge that we start to run into is how do we house all this data, And so kind of the history is our company was founded, our founder, our president and CEO, he started the company in his garage. He built that first vehicle in his garage, and collected the first, set of roadways by himself, basically, and wrote the software and everything. And so we've been a company that's always kind of built things from the ground up. And so, we started with, we'd have a workstation that was designated for a particular project, and it just had a handful of just individual drives in it. And so data would be put on that. And then over time, we went from that to, we bought a chassis that could hold like 24 drives, and we put a RAID card and, attach them all together and have a big RAID so we could have a bigger drive. And then, just as the data keeps growing and getting bigger and more intense, and the more projects we have, came to the decision we needed to, okay, how are we going to go forward with this? Because this is not really sustainable. And so we decided to look into vendor solutions. And so I did some research and kind of narrowed it down to two. We were looking at EMC and we were looking at DataON. It was kind of the two finalists that we were kind of looking at. We went with DataON because we were already kind of a Microsoft shop. So like all our servers and everything were all Windows, and there's a familiarity there. But also the cost, and so their cost was in between us building our own stuff and, like EMC, which is now Dell EMC. And so we went with that method. And so we started back with 2012, kind of when storage spaces was coming on. And so we started with that, and we've had a handful of different configurations that we've worked with data on since. We started with a cluster in a box where it was 2 nodes and a bunch of drives inside the same chassis. Then we switched to separate servers as being the nodes with the JBODs attached, so we went to a 2-node with 4 JBODs. And then 2 years ago, we switched to the S2D on server 2019, where we have 4 nodes and 4 JBODs. And so we're now adding at least 500 terabytes a year of data. And so we are over, 3 petabytes worth of data now. And so moving to the S2D clusters and stuff like that has been very beneficial for us and very efficient. And so one of the things that we added this past year is we had to figure out how to get people to be able to work remotely and be efficiently, because like we have the office in Costa Rica, we would get the data from our vehicles and we would do some processing, and then we would send it to the Costa Rica office so that they could do their part. And, that was taking weeks. And so we bought a 3-node HCI cluster to run VDI on. And so we were able to turn that, multiple weeks into like 2 to 3 days that the people in Costa Rica could be viewing the same data. And so that was a big benefit for us. And then it was also, it got sped up because of COVID-19, and we had a lot of people in our office had to work remotely too. And so it kind of helped speed that up. And so like the solution was the Azure Stack HCI 3-node cluster, as you can see in this picture. It was, as Cosmos kind of said, we bought it, we plugged it in, plugged the cables in, and we were kind of up and running kind of the same day. So there wasn't a lot of configuration. There wasn't a lot of management, that we had to deal with. And so that was a great investment on our part. And so I don't think we're going back to any old methods anytime soon. So, and so in closing with my part, if I were to share 2 things that would be most beneficial for anybody who's just starting this, is one, no PowerShell. Back in 2012 when we started using storage spaces and, having to use PowerShell commands, I wasn't that familiar with PowerShell. And so that was kind of a learning curve. And so that is definitely learn PowerShell. And the other is to embrace Windows Admin Center. And I've been watching it evolve over these past couple of years, and it's turning into quite an amazing tool. And so anyway, in the closing, that's my story for Pathway Services.
Hey, thank you, Nathan. I'll take the slide back a little bit. I think this is a great example. Believe it or not, your journey, the Microsoft journey you took, is really the same journey that DataON's been on for the last 10 years. Your journey is longer than Cosmos. Cosmos started his journey as HCI, I believe, when 2016. Your journey started as shared storage. And you really took on this entire Microsoft journey of software-defined storage, from a shared storage, JBOD, capacity drive, replacing a SAN, to moving yours to share nothing S2D, to now leveraging the capability of Windows Server 19 Azure Stack HCI to run your VDI clusters. And I think your story actually is very similar to many of our customers across the spectrum, where they're a medium-sized company, they're looking for technology that they could believe and trust, like Microsoft, but also scale based on the workload you need. You have VDI workload, you have storage file share workloads, you have other workloads that you're using to ensure that you can run your business efficiently. I guess I have a question for you before I go to my slide is, as you've been on this journey, nothing is perfect. What are some of the challenges you face? I know rebuild was something that you had to spend a lot of time. Is there something you want to really tell Microsoft they need to do better to make sure that their solution can continue to innovate? Any thoughts there?
The initial one is just you kind of alluded to it, is kind of the rebuilding time. And it sounds like they're kind of working on that stuff already. But I'm excited to hopefully get to see that in person someday soon, because the rebuild times are quite slow.
Cosmos, any thoughts there? Because he has petabytes, 500 terabytes of storage. He's adding 500 terabytes a year and rebuilding. How are you guys going to help Nathan and many companies like his to continue to make that pain go away?
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear that firsthand. So there's 2 improvements that I think you can be excited for. The first one is actually already part of the latest release of Azure Stack HCI. And so in Azure Stack HCI version 20H2, storage repairs are about 4 to 5 times faster with a typical update scenario. So that's a very significant change. In our testing, the time to rebuild a server after applying a monthly update went from about 45 minutes to about 9 minutes. The way that we did that is there's a new engine that actually handles the repair inside of storage bases. It runs what we call a granular bitmap of the data that's actually changed while the node was down. Previously, the changes were tracked using a relatively large chunk of about a gigabyte. That is now a 256 kilobyte chunk. So it's a much finer grained tracking of what information actually needs to be repaired and resynced. And as a result, it's about 4 to 5 times faster in our testing. That's actually just the first thing, though. The second thing is we are also introducing a user adjustable control where you can determine if you want the repair to go faster or slower. Going faster, of course, consumes more bandwidth, right? But if you have network bandwidth and storage bandwidth to spare and you'd actually just like it to end sooner, you can dial it up and then you can dial it back down again. That's not something that's in the current version. It's something that's coming in the release later this year. But because Azure Stack HCI is an always up-to-date service, you'll be getting that feature as a subscriber.
I'm so glad that you're listening. I know that you've been in talk with many customers, including DataON customers, and there's a lot of challenges as we continue to innovate with technology. And I'm very happy that at least you guys are listening and continue to make incremental improvement to the software piece of it. Another question that comes up quite a bit, and I think will apply to Nathan as well, is as these technology continue to get rolled out, and they have multiple clusters today running on 2016, 2019, and if they want to take advantage of the new Azure Stack HCI, that transition, what is the best way to transition their workload to the new Azure Stack HCI OS? Is there smoother? Is it coming in the future? Any thoughts there, Cosmos?
Yeah, it's a good question. So today, there is a path that you can take, but it does require a maintenance window. And so it's not a zero downtime migration path from a Windows Server-based solution to an Azure Stack HCI solution. So that path looks like essentially shut down the workloads, shut down the cluster, install the new OS, leave all the data on the drives, and then bring the cluster back up again. And that typically, if I'm being honest, that's like the kind of thing where you'd want to set aside a weekend and say, okay, this is our maintenance window. We'll be back up on Monday, right? So it doesn't require you to have a whole new secondary environment that you can like move all the data there and then shuffle it back. So it's really not so bad, but it's also not a zero downtime solution. We are looking at ways to improve that. We've heard the feedback that actually it would be great if, for example, we could do a rolling transition from one to the other with the cluster up the whole time. But that's not something that we can currently do. And we have nothing to share right now on when that will be possible.
Last question before I go to my slides, and I think there will be more questions coming from the audience. One of the great benefits of Azure Stack HCI, I consider, is the advantage you take hyper-cloud services. A lot of services that's been validated in Azure Cloud, the ability to leverage those services on-premises for a customer. A great example is Kubernetes container, where Microsoft officially announced that you could run Kubernetes on-premises, AKS, and really take advantage of container technology that you guys have proven in the cloud. If you look at Nathan's environment, Nathan had to, with the COVID and everybody working from home, he had to go deploy a VDI solution. And DataON, along with our partner, really helped Nathan roll out a VDI RDS, both is the Microsoft technology, running on Azure Stack HCI Windows Server 19. Can you talk more about the benefit of this cloud services, ability to integrate with on-premises, and why that is so important as we really truly build a hypercloud for exactly like VDI?
Yeah, I can. And actually, you bring up a great point. So let me on Azure Kubernetes Service first, because you mentioned that. I don't know if you guys know this. The Azure Kubernetes Service is actually the fastest growing service in Azure Compute. It's an incredibly popular service. And what that reflects is the fact that slowly but steadily, not only are new workloads being deployed as containerized workloads, first of all, which expect a Kubernetes environment that they can run in, but also, slowly but steadily, traditional workloads are being lifted and shifted or modernized to run in containers as well. And so it's really important, I think, for customers to have a platform that they've chosen that provides them not just a rock-solid way to run virtual machines, which is certainly going to be the majority workload today, right? That's probably most of what you have in your data center. But also, as you go forward, to be able to run Kubernetes containers side by side with those virtual machines on the exact same cluster. And that's what you get with Azure Stack HCI, because we can run, not just connect to the Kubernetes service. We can actually run the full Azure Kubernetes service directly on your Azure Stack HCI cluster. And that's in preview right now. It'll be going GA later this year. And so I think the reason that matters, to your point, Howard, like, why is this so important? And it's actually central to our vision of helping customers to innovate anywhere with Azure, is because of the consistent skills and workflows and processes that you learn as part of these services. And so if you make an investment in learning how the Azure Kubernetes service works on Azure, those skills are transferable now to your on-premises environment with Azure Stack HCI and vice versa, right? If you have some containers that you deploy on Azure Stack HCI, doing that is going to teach you how to use the Azure Kubernetes service, at which point suddenly you have expertise in how to deploy a Kubernetes cluster in the Azure cloud, which is awesome, right? Like you've got these skills that can transfer both ways. And that's true, I think, when I look across the board at these different Azure hybrid services that you can take advantage of with Azure Stack HCI. So whether it's Azure Monitor or Azure Security Center, learning how these things work in the context of the cloud helps you to get started with using them on HCI and vice versa as well. And I think that's really the big benefit, is it helps sort of maximize your investment in learning how these things work because you can use them anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Cosmo. I think that's very important as we continue to talk to our customer and really drive this vision of hybrid cloud. Truly, Microsoft is the company and one company that could really deliver that vision, because you guys have a public cloud available today with many services that people are running. Plus, you have the ability to deliver on-premises solution with Windows Server, now evolution into Azure Stack HCI. I think really, truly, that is a great advantage and benefit for enterprise customers that are looking to bridge the two, but not have to choose one or the other. So that's a really good position you guys have. All right, so let me do some slides, and we could take more questions from the audience and talk about integrated systems. I spoke to many of you guys and many opportunity about the journey that DataON have taken for the last 10 years on Microsoft. But I think we're really at a cusp of an inflection point where we believe partnering with Microsoft closely with integrated system really deliver that what we call a great customer experience, appliance-like feeling. There are a lot of pain points in the past where when you do a solution, you will customize it, you pick a component. When you do upgrades, you need to take a node down or put it into maintenance mode. The goal as we continue to evolve with Azure Stack HCI is to really understand the relationship and the pain point of the customer system admins and really reduce that to make sure that we, DataON and Microsoft, could really have a peace of mind for you for your infrastructure. You could focus on your workload, your application, your daily job, but not worry about the infrastructure and how to make sure the infrastructure, the solutions maintained and updated, both from an OS software side and from a hardware infrastructure side. And that's kind of what the integrated system is about. Cosmo alluded to this earlier, and I just want to reinforce the fact that with the new Azure Stack HCI, really you have choices now. You have choices to co-traditional, provide and develop and purchase what we call a Azure Stack HCI validated nodes. These are certified, validated solution that DataON and partners goes in to make sure we do all the testing to make sure everything is really working with Azure Stack HCI OS. But at the same time, you now have another choice, which is the Azure Stack HCI integrated system. With the integrated system, as we spoke to earlier, it really reduced the time to market, time to deployment concept of your entire HCI infrastructure, right? Because everything is pre-installed, is pre-out validated, is orderable in terms of complete solution stack that really works together. That's number one. Number two is support, right? And this is the first time that being ability to have that single support between your partner, which is your solution provider and vendor DataON and Microsoft, seamlessly in the background. So there isn't a responsibility discussion. It's really DataON and Microsoft jointly helping the customer to ensure that your infrastructure is running smoothly. And both of us are on the call at the same time to help you if you have any issue. Lastly is really the ability to do hassle-free updates and maintenance for the entire full stack, both for the hardware and software, and I'll go into that a little bit as well. If you look at the portfolio today that DataON has, really we have three portfolio of integrated system. And all these information are on our website, and feel free to go to our website and download all the information. But really, we don't have hundreds and 20, 30 SKU like a validated node. We really only have 3 SKUs. Why? Because we want to ensure that the solution and the system that we deliver for you is the highest reliability and easy to deploy in that process. So you have a choice of a 1U form factor, you have a choice of 2U form factor that's hybrid, and also you have a choice of 2U 16-bay to really deliver that entire all-flash performance. So based on your workload and based on your requirements, we will design the right solution, integrated system for you. I'll give you one example from the hardware perspective, why an integrated system is different. Memory. Memory has been a very important design point as DataON continue with our customer for VM virtualization and memory utilization. For integrated system, we want to take advantage of all the CPU path. You know, with the Intel CPU, every CPU comes with 6 channels, so 2 CPU is 12 channel. So in the integrated system design, the minimum DIMM requirement is 12 DIMM per server. Why? Because we want to take advantage of all the channels to ensure the highest efficiency and performance for your integrated system. That is just one example of why an integrated system is designed different from a typical validated node. So as you continue to do your evaluation looking at a solution, you'll see that both from a hardware perspective, there are different subtle differences in terms of how we design and what the hardware is curated across the board. As we talk about integrated system and easy procurement reliability, really there are multiple components that DataON add to the value. Azure Services, as alluded to earlier by Cosmos, ability to help the customer deliver that Azure Services as a hybrid cloud is very important. Second, providing a software stack as a snap-in or extension to the Windows Admin Center with Must and Must Pro allows our customer to deliver monitoring services and update services. Deployment is a huge, huge differentiation from DataON. DataON is known for white glove services, is known for the fact that we really want to make sure that we help our customer deploy your entire solution seamlessly into environment and really be there to make sure that you can run your workload efficiently. So we really want to make sure that we have that complete deployment services as part of the integrated system. Lastly is the premium warranty and support services that we deliver. DataON also is known for the fact that when you pick up a phone call and call DataON, we're right there to help you 24/7, right? But with integrated system, we're now working with Microsoft around the clock to ensure that if you have any critical issues, our support organization infrastructure are set in place to help you across the board. Cloud services, talked about pre-install Azure Stack HCI, talked about Azure Backup. All these are part of the Azure Cloud Services that DataON help our customer with. DataON Must and Must Pro. DataON Must was introduced in 2016 and now extension within the Windows Admin Center in your deployment. It provides hardware level visibility for your infrastructure, including mapping, disk, and also alert services, which allows you to get real-time alert about your infrastructure. With DataON Must, this is the brand new feature that DataON developed along with Microsoft as a new snap-in extension for Windows Admin Center. With DataON Must, we're now taking the ownership on the hardware piece of the update and upgrade. And there's a demo on the website if you want to go see it, but I just did a quick screenshot, right? You go through the process where our Must Pro extension will first set everything up, whether or not it's beginning of deployment or during the middle once everything's set up. We'll do a check of the inventory of all your current firmware, drivers, BIOS, and compare that to our quarterly golden image, right? These could be NIC drivers, SSDs, hard drive, to ensure that whether or not you have the latest firmware driver. Then you get to choose as a customer whether or not you want to update your entire cluster as integrated system with the latest firmware driver from our golden image. Then through the orchestration of Microsoft cluster aware updates, you'll go through the orchestration process, validate, and deliver that update process seamlessly in the background to ensure that you don't have to go worry about it while you go to sleep or stay up all night to do the maintenance window. Once everything is complete through the Microsoft orchestration, now it reboots, and now all your entire infrastructure is up to date. This is a huge, huge, huge feature in the integrated system, which we believe our customer will really appreciate and value, and that's why we believe this is going to be a really game changer for our customers. Lastly, ability to really deliver that end-to-end experience for integrated system is what DataON will continue to innovate, meaning that we want to engage with the customer from the planning phase to the design phase to the pre-deployment phase, doing stress tests, helping the customer and really be right there with you to deploy the entire solution integrated system seamlessly. But at the same time, for the next 3 to 5 years, provide that premium level warranty and support to ensure your entire infrastructure is up to date. That is the level of integrated system premium service that we believe to ensure that our customer has the best solution in place. We added additional deploying services for integrated system. That includes health check validation, that includes documentation, that includes 2 days of training. All these are bundled within the integrated system to ensure that the simple deployment really is experienced by our customer. Warranty and support. We will provide free Azure Monitor setup for 90 days as part of the integrated system, and we'll provide around-the-clock support for both hardware and software. As an example, this is very similar to what Nathan has, an ability for a integrated system or Azure Stack HCI to scale. You can see that as part of the solution for Scala storage, you have the ability to really replace your current storage as a Scala storage and really expand as you go. In the case of many of our customers, like Pathway, they're able to expand by adding additional nodes, adding additional JBots, and add additional drives to make sure they can scale and continue to run their application. This is a great benefit of Microsoft Azure Stack HCI solution and specific application for Scala storage. As a conclusion, DataON continue to work with our customer and partners like Microsoft, like Intel, Mellanox, and Western Digital to deliver that complete solution that is seamless transition for our customers. We believe that we have the right application in place. We believe our software and Must Pro will deliver that seamless experience, and we hope to continue to work with our customer like you to take you on this journey to the hypercloud along with Microsoft. So in conclusion, Cosmos, anything to add for our audience? So we have a couple of minutes left.
Howard, I think you summed it up beautifully. I mean, we're very excited on the Azure team about Azure Stack HCI. We're excited to be able to bring the technologies and the engineering that we're doing for our public cloud customers and actually bring that to folks who have scenarios where they need to run certain applications or certain workloads outside of the public cloud. Again, we're very committed to helping everyone be empowered to innovate anywhere with Azure, whether that's attached services like monitoring and security center, whether that's core workloads like the Azure Kubernetes service, or whether it's innovations in our core SDDC stack with things like Kernel Soft Reboot. I'm just excited that we can deliver all of these things to customers, and look forward to the journey over the next couple of months and years with folks, and look forward to talking with everyone again.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Cosmo, for this opportunity to present to our customer. And this ends our session, and I look forward to talking to all the new customer, existing customer about the journey to hypercloud. Thank you so much.